Hello, this is Domenico with Easynomics, and this is a continuation of the Paper 3 practice question we were looking at in the context of excise taxes applied to cigarettes in the state of New York. This series of videos can be found in a dedicated playlist for Paper 2, Paper 3 calculations. It's also in a playlist for government intervention, elasticity, so you can find that all on the channel. Or simply search for excise tax and you'll find this. But in any case, it will all be linked in the video notes below. So this is part of a little series. We were working on breaking down and really fundamentally understanding how taxes work. We would typically use a model like this on our paper exams, but this video highlighted some additional depth to the model, so you can watch that if you're interested. That led to another video where we're looking at the application of non-price determinants of substitutes, where the state of New York, by increasing taxes on packs of cigarettes, becomes very, very costly and becomes a very expensive alternative, forcing, or not forcing, but perhaps incentivizing consumers in the state of New York to look for cheaper substitutes in the surrounding states, like in New Hampshire, where cigarette taxes are lower and packs of cigarettes are priced lower. Then we moved on to this paper 3 type practice question. Here's our workings from looking at questions A and B, so that you can find the link to the breakdown of those two questions. This video will be focused on questions C and D, and then there'll be a final video going over questions E and F. So in A and B, we went over the change in consumer producer surplus by using the trapezium formula, which is the surface area of this type of shape. The IB might provide you on a paper 3 with a model where you don't see the Y or X intercepts, so you can't simply calculate the surface areas of two triangles and subtract them from each other. So this formula comes in very handy because we can use this trapezium formula just to calculate that change for consumer and producer surplus. So those are the workings from that previous video. So here we're going to calculate the welfare loss and the government excise tax revenue generated, and that'll be it. And then there'll be a final video on PED and PES using this applied or this given model. So here we have question C. Using figure 1, calculate the welfare loss. So I want you to pause the video and think about identifying that welfare loss and calculating what that welfare loss area would be. So please pause the video, take a look at the image, and see if you can figure that one out. Okay, so let's take a look. First, we want to be able to identify the area. So the welfare loss is this triangular area that appears here. All right, in theory, the government intervention is taking us away from kind of an equilibrium, a free market equilibrium, where S1 equals D1 to this point here. Okay, where in theory, if it's a free market and perhaps society wants this quantity of cigarettes and wants to consume regardless of the negative consumption externality, it would take us to this point here, 220, where the marginal benefit is greater than the marginal cost. And so that gives us a welfare loss being this shape here. Now, since these are cigarettes, allocative efficiency would probably be achieved at 220. That's why the government's intervening. But we're just going to use this model just to practice a welfare loss calculation. So here we see that triangular area. Okay, so a triangle, it's a simple formula. Here we have kind of the shape of the triangle here. All right, and then we have this kind of height here. All right, so I can just simply use the entire length of A multiplied by the base of B. A times B divided by 2 will give me the surface area of that triangle. So the length of the length of A would be equal to the price paid by consumers of 13 minus the price received by producers of 8. 13 minus 8, that equals $5, which makes sense because it's a $5 tax. Okay, so it's $5. Now we're going to multiply that by the base, and the base is equal to this distance here. So 250 minus 220, 250 million minus 220 million. That works out to 30 million, right? So $5 times 30 million divided by 2, because it's a triangle, not a rectangle, and that will give us the answer. That works out to 150 million. Divide that by 2, and then we get a final answer of 75 million. Okay, so the welfare loss is equal to 75 million if your society desired this price and quantity of cigarettes produced and consumed, right? And the government intervention is taking us away from that. In the context of a negative externality, we would go to social optimum. But again, this is just a practice welfare loss question, just to practice if we can identify and calculate that area. All right, let's move on to the next question. Question D, calculate the government excise tax revenue generated. All right, so question D, here we had question C. All right, I want you to pause the video and go ahead and calculate the government excise tax revenue that's being generated by that imposition of the tax. Please pause the video and calculate it. Okay, so this is a pretty straightforward, easy question. We want to identify the tax revenue. So it's the tax, a price of $5, 13 minus 8, multiplied by the number of units bought and sold with that tax. And we're going to get this rectangular area here. Okay. So it's just base times height. So we have a price of $5. So we have a $5 tax being 13 minus 8, multiplied by the number of units bought and sold. So it's 220 million. And that works out to 1,100 million, or $1.1 billion of tax revenue collected by the state of New York with the imposition of that tax on an inelastic, addictive good like cigarettes. So there was my final answer, $1.1 billion of tax revenue collected. Great. So those are just some applications of calculations using this model. Last video, which will be linked as well, we're going to go over questions E and F. Using this model, let's calculate the PED when price increased from 10 to 13. Calculate the PES when price received by the producer decreased from 10 to 8. All right. If you have any questions on this particular video, you can comment those questions below, and don't forget to subscribe and to like. Thank you so much.